My name is Terry Welsh, and I'm president of the Banning Ranch Conservancy. I'm also chairperson of the Sierra Club Banning Ranch Park and Preserve Task Force. Now, for the last 15 years, I've led the effort to preserve all of Banning Ranch as open space. I want to thank you all for coming. The turnout is much better than any of us expected, and I want to thank all the volunteers that worked so hard getting the word out. We got a great evening planned for you tonight. Next slide. We're going to give you an update on our effort to preserve all of Banning Ranch as open space. You're going to hear from several speakers. Thank you. We're going to talk about Banning Ranch, and we also invited Kim Hendricks of Friends of Fairview Park. She's going to give us an update on Fairview Park. Now, the way the evening is going to run is after each speaker, there'll be a little bit of time for questions and answers. And I would ask that you go up to that middle mic and ask your questions. And also let it be known that our meeting is being taped, and it will be available on the internet at Costa Mesa Brief. So we're going to stick to a very tight schedule, and we're going to try to have, we're starting 15 minutes late, but we're going to try to have everyone done speaking by 8 to 8:15. At that point, I'd encourage you all to stay around. The other reason we're having this meeting tonight is because we want to inspire you to become involved in our effort, to participate in it. So, on that note, I think everyone here knows where Banning Ranch is, but for those who don't, I always start off my talk by saying that Banning Ranch is the largest parcel of unprotected coastal open space remaining in Orange County, if not all Southern California. That's not to say it's the largest parcel of coastal open space. I mean, there's larger parcels. There's Crystal Cove State Park, for example, but that's publicly owned and it's protected. Banning Ranch is the largest parcel of privately owned, unprotected coastal open space remaining in Orange County, if not all of Southern California. It's just the basics. It's 400 acres. It's located on Coast Highway at the mouth of the Santa Ana River on the far west side of Newport Beach in Costa Mesa. It's been an oil field since 1940. It's contiguous and adjacent to publicly owned protected open space on several sides. To the southwest, you have the Army Corps of Engineer wetlands. To the east, you have Sunset Ridge Park. That's a City of Newport Beach park. They're actually constructing it right now. To the north, you have Talbert Nature Preserve and Talbert Regional Park. And to the further up the river, you have Fairview Park. And finally, on the other side of the river, you have the Huntington Beach Wetlands Conservancy wetlands. And those extend all the way up to Beach Boulevard. There's actually a little pocket of them on the other side of Beach Boulevard. So you can see that Banning Ranch really serves as a link and an important wildlife corridor for all these properties. And we are all hoping that all of these properties, all of Banning Ranch too, will eventually be united into the future Orange Coast River Park. Now, as I said, Banning Ranch is privately owned property, and a developer has proposed a large project for Banning Ranch. When I say large, that's actually an understatement, because you can see that the size of this project at 1,375 homes just dwarfs anything ever built along the Orange County coast in recent memory. In fact, it's an accurate statement to say you could take this proposed project and reduce it down to 10% of its size, and it would still rank amongst the largest projects ever built along the Orange County coast in recent memory. Now, in terms of density, that's units per acre, it's even more disproportionate. In 2006, the City of Newport Beach amended their general plan to make the preservation of the entire Banning Ranch as open space a priority. In 2008, the Banning Ranch Conservancy was formed. We're a nonprofit, and our mission is the preservation, acquisition, conservation, and management of the entire Banning Ranch as a permanent public open space, park, and coastal nature preserve. Just one more thing I want to say. There's a new group that's been started called the Newport Banning Land Trust, and I just want everyone to understand that they are not associated with us. They are decent, polite, and professional people. We've met with them, but understand that the Newport Banning Land Trust is an organization that was created by, funded by, and has its board positions filled by the developer's team. It should be looked at as an arm of the development effort. We're very excited about our vision plan. We hope you picked up a copy of it. I don't think this is working still. But anyway, we hope you picked up a copy of it. We're very proud of it. It talks about the history of Banning Ranch, the topography of Banning Ranch, the biology of Banning Ranch. It talks about our vision for Banning Ranch, which we call the Banning Ranch Park and Preserve, because it will be a park and a preserve. It talks about how much it's going to cost to buy Banning Ranch. It talks about where that money's going to come from. It talks about plans for the oil operation. You should all know that the surface development rights are owned by Newport Banning Ranch LLC, or we commonly referred to as NBR. But the mineral rights and the oil operation is owned by a separate entity. So the vision plan talks about plans for the oil operation. It talks about how Banning Ranch will be remediated, that means cleaned up. And it talks about how it will be restored. In other words, the habitat will be improved. And finally, it talks about volunteer opportunities, not just in the future for the, as docents or guides for the Banning Ranch Park and Preserve, but volunteer opportunities right in the here and now. Now, I just want to say, going off subject just a little bit, I've run into a few people, and maybe you have, and maybe you are these people, who have this idea that the development is a done deal. And I really want to dispel that myth. The best way I think I could do it is just to tell you, in all honesty, there is more optimism amongst the board members of the Banning Ranch Conservancy than ever before. We've had many things go our way, and we just are very optimistic of our chance of ultimate success. Among the many reasons is because it's been done before. I always like to bring up the example of Bolsa Chica. They originally proposed 5,000 homes there. And by the time it was initially approved by the Coastal Commission, it had already dropped to about a quarter of its size. And then the back and forth, the lawsuits, by the time the dust finally settled, the project was less than 5% of what was initially proposed. Now, this didn't just happen by accident. It happened because the community organized. So, again, the Banning Ranch Conservancy is just a community-based, grassroots, environmental group. Our success depends upon support from the community. And to that end, we have tables set up in the back afterwards, 5 different areas where we really need help. In many ways, we become victims of our own success. There is so much work to do in this last year. My to-do list is so long, I've just accepted that there's stuff on there I'll just never get to do, and it's important stuff. We really need more hands on deck. So membership outreach, birding, biology, we need to start a raptor study for this spring. Visioning, talking about the future of Banning Ranch, remediation, restoration. Social media, we really need help. We know we could do a better job of reaching out to the community. We're still, we're not up to the cutting edge in social media, and we really need help with that. And fundraising, we just need to raise funds. A good question is, a very good question is, where's the money going to come from to buy Banning Ranch? And I want to look you all in the eye right now and tell you the money is there. Now, Orange County, because of Measure M, a half-cent sales tax, this county is unique. It will be spending $240 million purchasing open space in the coming years. Well, they've already spent 50 of that, and they've already purchased over 1,000 acres, including one parcel the same size as Banning Ranch. So this money will be spent. It's there, it will be spent. It is our job to see that some of it comes towards Banning Ranch. Now, the committee that decides where to spend that money, they've reviewed Banning Ranch, they like it, they've placed Banning Ranch in their top tier, and they've declared portions of the Mesa to be priority conservation areas. Our task ahead is getting the owners to the table. Now, that's acquisition, but we also need money from just day-to-day operations, consultants, supplies. I mean, it costs a lot of money just to go day by day. And I'm going to invite our vice president up here right now, and she is here, Suzanne. Okay. Would you like to come and talk about the $25,000 grant? Thank you very much. This is Suzanne Forster. And you got your PowerPoint later on. This is just
Later on,
2 minutes.
right. Well, I'm just going to take a minute. Can you hear me?
Yeah, get right.
Okay, I'm just going to take a minute now and talk to you about our matching challenge. I want to let everybody know about it. Last year, we made an incredible offer by a man we think of as a visionary donor. He told us we raised $25,000, he would match it dollar for dollar. So, of course, we've been madly working to make the money, to make our goal, and we're actually really close. We're within $4,000 and change of that $25,000. Unfortunately, we have a deadline looming. We are really up against it. So if there's anything you could do tonight to help us reach our goal, it would be greatly appreciated. We have a donation jar back there, and we'll take checks. Anything that you could possibly do would be wonderful. I was going to offer to clean people's house if they contributed tonight. That's how desperate we are. But in fact, I've messed up my back. It's really the truth. I've got a doctor's note. And so there is no house cleaning in my immediate future. But please do not let that stop you from contributing if you'd like to. And many, many thanks to those of you who do.
Thank you so much, Suzanne.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm going to give an update on biology. And I'm just going to cover more about the habitat destruction. But then I'm going to turn it over to Rob Hamilton. He's a professional biologist. He's excellent. He's worked with us. And he's going to talk about the many different rare species. So I'm just going to start out and focus on the Mesa. And you have to understand the Mesa is the most biologically rich area of all Banning Ranch. This is where the rare species are. And I'm just going to talk about habitat for 4 of them right there. And the first thing I want everyone to know is how that mesa is going to be altered under the proposed development. And what this is a grading diagram. And anything there that's in orange, red, or yellow is going to be graded down. Anything that's blue, lavender, or purple is going to be filled in. So you can see that the grading footprint is pretty much the entire mesa. Now, this is the grading that's going on right now at Sunset Ridge Park. As I said, that they're actually constructing Sunset Ridge Park right now. To get an idea what the grading, what they're proposing at Banning Ranch, remember that they're going to grade about 50,000 cubic yards at Sunset Ridge. At Banning Ranch, they're proposing grading 2.6 million cubic yards of dirt, moving it around. That's about 52 times the amount. And this concerns us, because that mesa, which is the most biologically rich area of Banning Ranch, will be wiped clean and turned into a lunar landscape. Now, they'll go back and they'll plant green lawns and build lighted sports fields, and they're counting that as open space. And in some areas, they'll plant some native vegetation. But to an environmentalist, that is not open space. Rather than just destroy the mesa, remove every blade of grass, we much prefer leaving the natural land formations, leaving the native habitat that's out there right now. Talk a little bit about vernal pools. These are ponds that dry up during most of the year. In fact, some years they don't even pond. And if you look at the rainfall, even with the heavy rain we had just last week or 2 weeks ago, this has still been an extremely dry season. But if you go back 4 and 5 years ago, those were above average rainy seasons. And those years, some of the model airplane guys, the guys that fly their airplanes at Fairview Park, they flew over Banning Ranch and they documented multiple vernal pools, somewhere between 40 and 50. Here's some of them right now. They did it the first year, and then that second year, which was even more wet, they went back and the vernal pools were in the same spot. And this time they actually flew several different dates, and they were there. These aren't just puddles that dry up once the sun comes out. They persist. So this data was taken to the agencies. The agencies asked for protocol fairy shrimp surveys. Here's another aerial from a model airplane. And now they're not done yet. We have to wait until we have another rainy season and the vernal pools pond before they can be completed. But so far, they found fairy shrimp in 35 of these. So we're going to make a strong argument, and we think we'll be successful, that these should all be protected under the Coastal Act, and not just the vernal pools themselves, but the watersheds. And that's typically a coastal commission protects not just the vernal pool, but the watershed. Now you can see how this, under the proposed grading footprint, these would just be wiped out, completely wiped out. I'm just going to rush through the last 3 species. There's been a bunch of gnatcatcher surveys, and they show a consistent area where these birds nest every nesting season. I mean, it's just, you can see all the, I mean, that is heavily documented, undeniable evidence. This grading footprint is going to wipe out a lot of that nesting area. Same way with cactus wrens. You know, these are not federally listed, but you know, any biologist will tell you they're even in more danger than the gnatcatcher. And it's same thing, extensive cactus wren habitat wiped out by this grading footprint. And burrowing owls. Now they're believed to be extinct in Orange County, except one place, that's Seal Beach Naval Weapons Station. But they've been documented to winter on Banning Ranch. They're not there all year round, but they're there in the winter. And something that rare, you can't go and wipe out its place where it hangs out in the winter, expect it to survive. But this grading footprint would really do a lot of damage. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Rob Hamilton.
So let's see. Well, I'm Rob Hamilton. My company is called Hamilton Biological. I've been doing field studies in Orange County since 1988. And in fact, I'm old enough to have done 3 years of gnatcatcher and other biological surveys on this very site back in the early 90s, now more than 20 years ago. So just to review really quickly, this is what Terry already showed you, so I'm not going to talk about it, other than to show that it's a couple miles from Upper Newport Bay and about 6 miles from Bolsa Chica, the other 2 most important coastal reserves in this part of Orange County. And in many respects, it's actually even more biologically rich than either one of those 2 areas by virtue of the vernal pool complex, which is barely present at Bolsa Chica and is not there at Upper Newport Bay. It's got coastal wetlands, riparian woodlands, coastal bluff scrub, maritime succulent scrub, short grass grassland, and vernal pool, which is put together, it's an assemblage of rare communities that are not found anywhere else in Orange County, and really very few places in Southern California. The following communities are ones that are considered to be special communities, known or believed to be of high priority to the state of California. I'm not going to read them all to you, but you can see there's quite a few. The annual grasslands that are most of the upper plateau, as Terry was telling you, have dozens of vernal pools, which are very rare in Orange County. And they also support an endangered species, the fairy shrimp, San Diego fairy shrimp. And they're also important wintering habitat for burrowing owls, loggerhead shrikes, and a number of other declining species that used to be common because most of Orange County used to be grassland. So basically for those reasons, the grasslands and vernal pools should be regarded as being especially rare and ecologically valuable. There's one of the pools that, as Terry was showing you, this is January 2011, the last time we had significant rain for a season. And, got a delay here. So there's some of the versatile fairy shrimp. He showed you the San Diego. This is the versatile fairy shrimp, which is more widespread than the San Diego. But these versatile fairy shrimp are found in about 3 dozen pools out there. So just to run through a number of the rare and endangered species out there, Least-Bill's vireos breed in the lowlands there, in the lowland riparian forests, as well as do yellow-breasted chats, yellow warblers. The Belding savanna sparrow is down in the coastal lowlands. That's an endangered species, state and federal. Clapper rails are in the Army Corps wetland restoration area, which is next to the lowlands. And I imagine they probably do go into the lowlands of Banning Ranch sometimes. California gnatcatchers are all along the bluffs and parts of the plateau where their scrub has been allowed to grow without being mowed, which a lot of it is mowed regularly, which is another point of contention. Cactus wrens, there used to be up to, I think, 14 pairs of cactus wrens about 20 years ago, and they've slowly dwindled to where now I believe they're considered to be extirpated from the entire lower Santa Ana River ecosystem. One interesting thing, I was just at a symposium for this species last week where they were talking about translocation efforts that have been done. There's been a successful one at Upper Newport Bay. There was a few pairs that were brought into there from North Irvine in 2006, and they're still there. They're reproducing. And for the first time this last year, one of the wrens from that population was found back in Irvine. So this is a technique that's going to be used more and more with this species, I predict, because they're just disappearing from all across their range in the coastal lowlands of Southern California. So, even though they may be gone from there, it's still an important area for them in the future, I believe. Burrowing owls winter at several spots on the plateau. Loggerhead shrikes as well are in the winter. They used to breed here. They're probably also either extirpated or almost extirpated from Orange County as a breeder. Northern harrier is there in the winter and potentially also breeds there, another species of special concern. And the white-tailed kite breeds there. So Terry was showing you how it fits into the larger open space matrix there. It's 400 acres out of about 1,350 that are available for this river park. And it would be the core of the river park, especially considering the rarity of the resources there. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Right. We'll take maybe just less than 5 minutes if anyone has any questions for Rob or myself, and then we will move on to Kevin.
Has anybody looked at the impact and pollution from not just from the added runoff from the proposed buildings, but also the loss of the kind of buffer zone from the other buildings around this area, the pollution that would end up in the ocean from that?
They may have looked at it. I haven't. But
that might be an interesting point to look into.
With that much grading that they're proposing, there would be huge issues with that.
But that would also be an argument that we could use that area. I know in other places I've lived, the marshlands and the natural spaces like that are huge kind of filters, buffer zones for pollutions from all the developed areas around there. So we should look into that.
Thank you. Excellent point. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having this. Quick question. I think I saw an article somewhere where a judge dictated that this space was not in the Newport or Orange County development plan originally and struck it down. I was kind of curious what was the deal with that.
That's our lawsuit victory, and our executive director, Steve Ray, will talk about it. If you can just hold on, he's definitely going to give an update on that. Okay, on that note, our next speaker is it Michael or Kevin? What's the schedule say? I'm sorry, Kevin, hold on. It is Michael. Now, Michael Hogan, she had prepared a great talk. She's a professor in anthropology, is extremely familiar about the Native American historical settlements on Banning Ranch. Sadly, she called me today and said she is just too sick to come. But we got her PowerPoint, and we have a great supporter and friend, Terry Koken, who's going to step up, and he's going to deliver her speech. And we thank you very much, Terry.
Well, is this thing on? Can you hear me? You caught me. They caught me real flat-footed on this.
A little closer.
Okay, they caught me flat-footed on this because I've got no idea what in the heck this PowerPoint is all about. Like that? We're good?
Yeah.
Okay. And the best I'll be able to do is to, tell you a few jokes and run through the PowerPoint. So let us go with that. And if there's anything I can explain, I'll be happy to try. Let's see.
There should go. Point it towards the laptop on the table there.
On the table. Okay.
And it should be the arrow pointing to the right.
Right, that's the one I'm pushing, but it does not seem to be doing what I want it to.
Really?
Well,
Just say next slide, Sean.
Next slide. How about that? Can you make it? Okay, we have the Gabrielino Indians at the time of the Portola expedition, and there were, you know, the Newport, I'm sorry, let's make that, the Fairview Park and the Banning Ranch were essentially contiguous spaces for the Native American populations. Now, there is a move afoot right now to do some development in Fairview Park, and as we all know, there's a big move afoot to do a whole bunch of development in Banning Ranch. God willing, when the creek don't rise, maybe we can get a little of that put aside. Go ahead for the next one. Channel Islands. It says that there are there was lots of prehistoric occupation. The Achachiman Indians go back in Panhe, which is down south of Rancho Santa Margarita, for a good 8,000 years, documented. So we've got plenty of evidence of Indians, and there's, if you go walking in Fairview Park, which you can, unfortunately you can't in Banning Ranch, you will see pathways of shells that were essentially the sustenance of the Native American population. There are a lot of them. Now, if they're in Fairview Park, they're in Banning Ranch. Okay, next slide. Sea level rise at the end of the Ice Age drowned much of the coastline. Well, probably then those islands weren't islands. They were probably part of the mainland. There appears to be evidence of inhabitation. And we've got a map of the territories here. We've got Gabrielino, we've got Juaneño, we've got Achachiman, we've got, are there any Native Americans present today? Anybody that okay, well, I can bullshit as much as I want then. Okay, let's have the next slide. Now, this details some of the Native American villages, and I'm darned if I can see this very well. Let's see, maybe I can. Well, you guys can see it better than I can. They're spotted all over this map, and there are a bunch of them. The artifacts exist on Banning Ranch, and there's, you know, we can't go in there and dig. We're not allowed to, but they're there. Next slide. Okay, we've got cogged stones all over the place. We've seen evidence of these in Fairview Park, and as I say, the two are contiguous. I would tend to doubt that the Native American population stopped at the boundary of Banning Ranch for 8,000 years and just waited and didn't bury anything or eat anything down there. I kind of don't think that holds water. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so it says here the prehistoric economy was based on hunting, gathering, and fishing. Yeah, a guy's got to eat, right? Next slide. Okay, we had the Mesa, we had the wetlands, we had the ocean, and we had the Native Americans, and they got a lot of their sustenance out of that, and they put a lot into it. And we don't publicize the areas where the Native American artifacts are to be found, but and the reason we don't is that pot hunters are going to go down there, and you know, not the medical marijuana kind, the other kind, and they're going to dig everything up they can and walk off with it. Well, we don't like that. That's not very archaeological. Next slide. Okay, the Gabrielino and Chumash invented a special fish hook to capture bottom-dwelling fish. Just because they're ancient doesn't mean they weren't ingenious. Next slide. Plants used by the prehistoric people of Banning Ranch. We've got toyon and coastal sage here. I'm not the plant person in the family. That's my good half who's sitting in the back of the room. She knows all about these plants, and I sure don't. I've seen toyon before, but I don't know what it's all about. I know that there's something down there called mule fat, and it was so called because there was a Bostonian in the area who said, that stuff makes my mule fat. But anyway, I don't know much about these plants. Let's go with the next slide. There was agriculture. It was known but not practiced. Well, it was practiced after the Spaniards came and colonized the Indians. I imagine, there's always somebody going to plant an oak tree or something like that. I got one in my backyard. Next slide. The rivers were unpredictable. Not anymore. They're all concrete now, and graveled on the bottom and stuff like that. But back then, mostly dry. To an extent, they were wet. Whenever it rained real hard, they gushed. There wasn't any particular boundaries they followed. Let's go with the next slide. A robust people of pleasing complexion and hair color. Now that sounds like something that Junipero Serra said. I don't know. Does anybody know? Is that one of his quotes? Probably not. Probably so. Next slide. And a picture of a Gabrielino chief and council of elders. I don't really know much about the tribal structure of the Gabrielinos or their council of elders. I sure hope they were saner than the current Costa Mesa City Council, but we can't be certain. Next slide. We have two representatives of the Costa Mesa City Council sitting in the audience. And no offense meant, ladies. The Gabrielino plank canoe. Back in those days, I used to make dugout canoes 8, 10, 12,000 years ago, but I gave it up. Now I'm into physics. Next slide. Ritual exchange and shell bead money. Well, by golly, with wampum, which takes a good deal of work to put together and distribute, you have a fairly stable medium of exchange, unlike paper dollars, which we're getting a lot of printed today. So the Native Americans had a medium of exchange. That basically means a civilization. As long as you've got a banker in the area, you've got civilization. Next slide. Ritual was an integral part of Gabrielino culture, as it is a part of our culture. We have a lot of rituals, like standing up in front of an audience and saying a lot of stuff about things you don't know anything about. Okay, next slide. The archaeological remains of a prehistoric house. It shows a dome-shaped house, and I'm not real sure how to interpret that, but it sure looks like a ruin of something or other. Next slide. Woven baskets. We've seen a lot of those, and if you go to the Gene Autry Museum in Los Angeles, you'll see a lot more. They have quite a collection. Go for the next one. The Spanish brought diseases. The Indians had no resistance. Yeah. Some of the stuff they brought was not, not exactly cultural, but just one of those things. Archaeological sites are fragile and not renewable. Yes, indeed, they are not renewable. We've heard a lot of talk about capping the archaeological sites in Fairview Park. I can talk a little about Fairview Park because it's open and there's been some exploration there. I can't really say much about Banning Ranch because it's been closed to the public now for, a quarter century? Something like that? Something longer, okay. And you can't really get on it legally, although you can get on it illegally. And I'm not saying any of us have been there, but I understand it's possible. They are non-renewable. If they're dug up or graded over or bulldozed out, we're not going to see that stuff again. It's going to be gone. Next slide. Preservation for future generations. Gabrielino Tongva, Juaneño Hachiman, and supporters make an annual pilgrimage to ancestral sites the first Saturday in October. We saw that last year. They came to Fairview Park, and many of the Native Americans protested City Council's plan to put a turnaround in Fairview Park. Whether the council listened or whether most of the council listened or not, I don't know. I know some people did. Let's go with the next one. That's it? You mean I'm free? Okay, or at least cheap. Thank you very much.
Okay, before we bring on our next speaker, which is Kevin Nelson, I just want to acknowledge a couple Costa Mesa City Council ladies are here tonight. Wendy Lease and Sandy Guinness, if you could. And if there are any other elected officials, I apologize. Please stand at this point and introduce yourself. And I'd also like to offer an opportunity if we're not going to endorse anybody, but if you want to get up and tell what you're going to tell. We're not going to endorse you, but if anyone's running for anything, if you got a chance, just get up and say, introduce yourself. And the next thing I want to do is I want to introduce the rest of the board. Now, we heard from Suzanne, our vice president, and you're going to hear from Steve Ray. He's our executive director. So I'm not going to introduce him right now. You'll see him. But I want to introduce our two other officers. And our secretary is Debbie Koken. She's in the back there. Debbie is the wife of Terry. And our treasurer is Jennifer Frutig. They're over there. And other members of our board of directors, we have Mark Tabbert, who was here. He was just here. We have Diane Silvers in the back, way in the far back corner. And I sure hope I'm not. We got Suzanne. I think that's it for our board members. Now, at this point, I'm going to grovel before you guys. And we've asked for money, and we're going to ask for money again, and we hope that you can make a substantial donation. But I would ask at this point, if you can just reach into your pocket right now and take out a dead president, just one of them, just one, and pass it to your right. Just $1. Pass it on to your right, and I'm going to start this process. Here you go.
Okay, cool. Wow, it's great. You all made it. Hope we entertain you tonight a little bit. My name is Kevin, and I would just start off by saying that I've been a lover of nature, a lover of the West, the big spaces and little corners, untraveled corners of the West my entire life. I think that I developed that, that appreciation early on in the 60s and 70s in this area when I surfed our waves, when I rode my bike down to the end of 19th Street and out along the Santa Ana River to go to the ocean, when I played at Fairview Park, in high school at Estancia. There were so many great times that I had with my friends, girlfriends even, just wandering around out in open spaces. So I think that's really that sort of style, that experience has come to define my life and who I am in a lot of ways. Didn't have any success in business yet, but oh well, maybe that'll define some other decade. So this is a photo probably sometime around the time 1953 or so when my family moved here. We lived off of Maple Avenue, just a block over. And so this is West Costa Mesa, looking out obviously to Huntington, what it looked like back then. So you've got Newport Boulevard down, kind of going diagonal, and then 19th Street stretching off in the distance. Big change, big change. since then. All the, I've watched as the orange groves, the farmlands, the gullies where kids played, where I played, I've watched as they all disappeared. In the past 30 years, really, the big toll has been taken. I remember even standing at Fairview Park, probably about 7 or 8 years old, with my family one evening, and looking out and seeing the power plant over, Huntington and Westminster, the lowlands out there. And I distinctly remember, I've thought about it my entire life as I watched what's going on around here. It was all pitch black. There was not a light to be seen anywhere other than probably the lights of Beach Boulevard, maybe something like Bouchard, and then the power plant. Just such an enormous change. So this is Banning from the Santa Ana River. It's kind of sat in our collective backyards for all this time. It's evaded somehow the change that's happened all around it, probably because it's been used for oil extraction. So they've been, as we all know, getting some revenue off of that. Even with that oil extraction, this place is still wild. It's wild enough so that if those wells and the main oil facility were yanked off of that land tomorrow, within a year, we wouldn't know that it had ever been there. This land will recover of itself easily. It's doing that right now in spite of the development team's efforts to kind of hide what it is. It contains, as Rob has gone through this a little bit, it starts, at the lowlands and the marshes on the west side. Then, going east, you run into a strong line of bluffs that stretch all the way from the end of 19th Street. In fact, they stretch all the way up to Fairview, but let's say as far as Banning Ranch goes, they stretch from the end of 19th Street to PCH. Now, these bluffs, were probably formed by the Santa Ana River as it wandered forever through the plains out there, all the way from Bolsa Chica, I understand, to probably the south side here, Banning Ranch, the bluffs, and then probably turned the corner into Newport, creating the Newport Bay. So, and as we know, as Mr. Kochen was saying, this is these bluffs are prime territory, would have been prime territory for the Indians. Grasslands. So this is what exists out there when it's not mowed and when it gets a little bit of rain. And as Rob said as well, they're very rare in this area now. Coastal Commission, all the biologist reports that I've read state that grasslands are just, almost non-existent anywhere, when they were everywhere. The arroyo. So the arroyos, I should say, is essentially the heart of the vitality and the beauty and the topography of the land. This particular arroyo runs east to west, cutting across the entire Mesa, sort of separating it, cutting it in half. The developers would like to put a road just about where you see that eucalyptus tree, a bridge, or fill in the arroyo. We probably all missed an opportunity to stop the water department, Newport Beach Water Department, from building a big facility which filled in a lot of the arroyo about, 10 years ago or so. This is another stretch. This is looking north towards 19th Street. And I would say that this place, if you look at Banning in its totality, it really is. I live down in San Clemente now, and I'm wandering around in San Onofre Park and Trestles quite often. Banning is equivalent to San Onofre, to a state park like San Onofre. San Onofre is on the south side of the San Mateo Creek and River watershed, pretty significant right there. That's the creek that, as soon as you leave San Clemente, it's that big open space where the base starts. That, San Onofre is on the south bank of that. Banning Ranch is on the south bank of the Santa Ana River. Good enough size. It competes well with San Onofre. Now, the problem has been here that we have what's called the biological baseline that agencies like the Costa Commission will be attempting to measure. In the top two photos, you see what the land wants to be. This is vegetation which is called native habitat or ESHA by the Costa Commission. In the bottom slide, you have, this is what was done regularly up until the past couple of years when agencies put too much pressure on the developer, we hope. But those two upper photos are the same place as in the lower photos, where the clock was cleaned on this place. Far from any wells, not necessary for fire protection or anything else, but it has been a consistent pattern that the place has been hacked in an attempt to lower the vegetation and the species count out there. That's been the reason. If the developers can come up with a real valid other reason, we haven't heard it yet. Okay, so again, this is all vegetation along these bluffs that is the kind of thing that the Coastal Commission will flatly say no to any development for. So there is a problem with developing this place with this much vegetation and habitat out there. So in addition to that, there's another shot of the arroyos. Newport Crest is in the distance there. It's a simple fact. Common sense says that ecosystems need space in which to thrive. If we're going to enjoy nature, we need space. We need that same kind of space to just disconnect from the built environment, from the signs, cell phones, blaring this, noise that, and it's a physical health thing and it's a mental health thing. And it's going to be only increasingly needed in the years to come as nature shrinks around the world. So therefore, this place is really, I think, it's the best place we're going to get for a long time to create a new park and preserve. Okay? Here is a little bit, you can quotes on what's called the concept of the rights of nature, which people around the world are beginning to chime in on, which states that, nature should be given, should be forced and set aside, locked down, that nature should get a percentage of space in which to thrive, as just for its own purpose, not for ours. There's a couple of wide shots, and I'll just leave that up there. Any questions? Okay, thanks.
Did anyone have any questions for Kevin? The next two speakers, I'm actually one we just weren't planning on speaking, and these next two people are not really closely involved in our effort, but we certainly consider them friends. First one is Jay Humphreys. He's going to talk about the city of Costa Mesa is revising its general plan, and we'd very much like to see wording in the general plan similar to Newport Beach, which makes priority of all the open space, prioritizes preserving all of it. And go ahead, thank you.
Good evening. Besides giving money and volunteering and doing all those other wonderful things we can do, we have an opportunity to take and actually affect how Costa Mesa looks at this property. Costa Mesa is currently undergoing a general plan review, and it's an update. And they've chosen to update only certain aspects of the general plan. The one aspect on open space has not been opened. However, there's some stuff going on now that says they're going to open that up. One of the ways to fight for this process is to send one email to the city of Costa Mesa saying that when they update the open space area in the general plan to specifically include language that protects and supports maintaining Banning Ranch as a nature preserve, and in the very strongest of language possible. So the one thing I would ask everybody in this room to do is simply send an email to the City of Costa Mesa, to the Planning Department, to basically say, folks, add Banning Ranch to the verbiage that protects that as a natural preserve. Even though we don't directly control it, we certainly do benefit from it. So it's in our best interest to have that in our general plan. Thank you very much.
And just understand that, you know, even though Banning Ranch is not officially in the city limits in Newport of Costa Mesa, it's mostly unincorporated, and some of it's in the city of Newport Beach. Understand that the current Costa Mesa general plan talks about Banning Ranch, so it's the precedent is there. We talk about it now. We just need to refine that language. And okay, we're going to have our next speaker is Kim Hendricks. Now she is doing amazing work at Fairview Park, and we're really glad that she is, because we always have this idea that once we preserve Banning Ranch, it's safe. But you can see that even open space that is preserved and purchased by the public, you still got to fight for it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kim Hendricks, and I'm a resident of Costa Mesa and a longtime lover of Fairview Park. You probably all know about Fairview Park, where it's located, that it's owned by the city, that it is regulated actually by the Fairview Park Master Plan that was approved by the city in 1998. It has been updated several times, 2001, 2002, and last in 2008. The Fairview Park Master Plan was put in place to provide guidelines for maintenance, restoration, and preservation, and any changes to Fairview Park. So Fairview Park is one of the largest freshwater wetland areas in the county and the largest coastal vernal pool in the county. The park has vernal pool habitats continuous with grassland, coastal sage, scrub, wetland, and riparian habitats. And just like Banning Ranch, this diversity of habitats in one area is found almost nowhere else in Southern California. Unlike Banning Ranch, people can use Fairview Park. In a democratic society, there's always going to be that tension between use and abuse, but it's a value to the whole community. Whoops, wrong way. The community loves this open space. I've been living there for many years, and hundreds of people use it daily. Schools use it. And just going back, that gentleman in the wheelchair that lives at Fairview Developmental Center would really like it if there was more off-road. I spoke to him, and they really don't want cement. These guys really want more nature and open space. Local schools love this place. It's a great place for kids. And here's a quote that I thought that was important. And as a teacher also, I see that kids need this unstructured play in the dirt time. It takes a toll on them and on their brains to have videos, media constantly given to them. They need to really get out and just get dirty and think, okay? This is really, and they love it too. This is what they want. The research agrees, okay? It's not my opinion. There's a lot of research out there, and I can direct you to it if you don't believe me. So what's this presentation about? It's letting the public know that most of Fairview Park has been degraded for the past 20 years when it was supposed to be restored according to the Fairview Park Master Plan and outside agencies. As a resident, I thought the city was taking care of it until year after year I saw it going downhill, and I started to wonder what was going on. This presentation is also about letting the public know that Fairview Park is under threat to be developed currently by the city. And this presentation is also giving you a way to get involved to save Fairview Park from development and to restore it. What should we do to improve Fairview Park? Okay, now that word improve is used so much in the city of Costa Mesa to mean put cement down, put a playground on top of dirt or something, okay? That's not what I mean by improve. And every single resident that I've spoken to around there has the same idea. I just don't know why the city doesn't listen. But what we should do is restore the native grasses on the mesa, east and west of Placentia. Not just west, but east, where the train tracks are. That whole hill where the burrowing owls could be, that's a grassland, that's a degraded grassland with meadow barley, purple needlegrass. The city seems to agree. This sign is out there on Fairview Park, talking about the removing of old grasses, okay, and planting new. Still to this day, it's never been done. Grassroots organizations do make a difference. Institute for Conservation Research and Education just this past weekend collaborated with an Eagle Scout, and they planted a coastal scrub habitat, 7 plants, and it was successful. Thank you, Mr. Staples and Mr. Nurhouse, for supporting that, putting in sprinklers. Now the maintenance part comes. But bringing back the grassland community on the mesas like vernal barley and blue-eyed grass will bring back the birds, the California gnatcatcher, an endangered species, the western meadowlark, other grassland users, more mesa natives. Don't forget about the insects, butterflies, reptiles, amphibians, and other mammals. And why are vernal pools so important? This is why. One reason, these are 4 reasons. Vernal pool habitat is a rare natural resource. Okay, I'm just going to let you read it. I won't read it. That was once common. Okay, development has destroyed it. Losses are 98%. Okay, some people just like nature and appreciate it. Some people don't. I don't know if there's an argument, but I don't think you should destroy something unless you completely understand it. And it's like the riveting analogy. You know, you can just pull so many rivets out of an airplane before the whole thing falls apart. And that's what it seems like we're doing with these endangered species. These are native to Fairview Park's vernal pools. And vernal pools are the womb of Fairview Park, okay, the watershed. If they're not completely destroyed, this is on the mesa west of Placentia at the end, just after the rains we had a couple weeks ago. And that's the end of vernal pool 3. They're supposed to be delineated. They're not supposed to have traffic going through them. They're supposed to be, the city's supposed to be the steward of the land and protecting them. And there's tire tracks through them. Vernal Pool 4 and surrounding grassland on Mesa. It's been mowed disc down to the dirt. I'm just shocked at what is there now, and I have more pictures. There's nothing there. They want to have a self-fulfilling prophecy of saying, see, this is a biological sensitive area, grassland. See, we've destroyed everything. It's no longer biologically sensitive. Let's develop it. Then it rained, but trucks still drove through Vernal Pool 4 and the Vernal Marsh like they usually have. This is in front of Waldorf School. Vernal Pool 3 was driven through and has been for many years as well. People dig in sensitive areas not knowing they're sensitive. I know this woman. I know these kids. They're great. You can dig in some areas, but not here. But they don't know because this little sign is so much shorter than all the other signs, and it's hidden behind these parked cars. And also the parked cars that were placed, some of the parking was placed there without being approved properly. So, and also looking at what's left of Vernal Pool 5 and 6 after the decomposed granite trail was removed by order of U.S. Fish and Wildlife after it rained. That's the mesa looking toward Waldorf. Look at the ground, okay? Look at their cement, it's been dumped. This is a capping of an archaeological site. Okay, look at the ground. This is looking east with the train tracks. And the train tracks are a necessary part of Fairview Park because they provide access to the east without foot traffic. And it's great for the kids. It's wonderful. Mesa and Hillside, looking at it again, that's all should be with burrowing owls. How can you help? Well, you can sign up in the back. You can find out who politically to vote for. There's an election coming up, which is important. Do your own research. Talk to others who have done their own. Email officials. It's always good because the bottom line is when it gets down to the bottom line, at least there'll be some record of it. And come to meetings like this one. So give yourselves a pat on the back.
You look very familiar. I think I've seen you down in the Talbert Nature Preserve,
Okay.
walking around with other groups.
Well, you know what, even though I'm fat, I jog out there a lot.
Well, I'm concerned for a lot of reasons with this whole project, what's going on. But primarily, I'm about the Talbot National Park, or Preserve.
Well, that's part of it.
And that's where the BMX Sheep Hills dirt jumps are at. And they've
Yeah.
been around for
yeah.
over 25
you,
years.
right.
That's where I saw you at the dirt jump.
I think that's great.
And I was just trying to get awareness with all the bikers and any of the other younger people too to take action and get involved in this, because I want to preserve it for traffic reasons, nature, and the list goes on.
That's great. There's a contact list on the back.
Okay.
Please sign it with your email, with your phone number. We're organizing, we're uniting, we're getting one voice. And, you know, I look at the Friends of Alpine, a group that took on the National Park Service in Yosemite when they wanted to close down Campground for all these hippie rock climbers. Well, now these hippie rock climbers were, you know, CEOs and attorneys, and they took on the National Park Service and won. And I think that, you know, when we speak, and this is our heritage, of speaking for what's right, and it's good for you to do what's right.
Because I know I'm not the only person that personally every day looks down, because I live on West 19th at the end, and look down and see the nature area and smile. I'm happy.
Right.
I'm relieved. I'm like, this is
Right.
why I live in Costa Mesa.
Right, sign that.
This gentleman's comment, right now, I just spoke to U.S. Fish and Wildlife yesterday, and the Orange County Sanitation District wants to put a sewer line.
Excuse me, Kevin. Anybody who speaks, we would like you to use a microphone to speak because this is being recorded, and the only way we can record what you're saying is if you use one of the microphones. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Harold Whitesburg. Kim, good job, really good. Kim and I met a few months ago when someone wanted to put a big turnaround on the end of her street on Pacific. I know, we're still trying to fight it too. And one of the things that came about, you know, they set up a Fairview Advisory Committee, and through a lot of citizen input and the support of people like Anna Vriska, who's just sitting in the back there, we've at least got them to acknowledge that they're not putting soccer and baseball fields on the southwest and the northwest quadrants at this time. Now we have to work on them, making sure they don't want to do anything on the east side. But one of the challenges we have, both with Banning Ranch and with Fairview Park, is the disregard people have for the environmental and ecological concepts that we're talking about here. When you hear the term fairy shrimps, all you hear are lots of jokes about fairy shrimps. They don't really understand the ecological entwinement of having the shrimps, having the birds, having people come back, etc. So it really becomes important upon us to take that locker room joking out of this discussion. And if you hear it, you need to come back hard against it and really talk about the seriousness of the environment in those situations. One of the key things we talked about is, you know, some of our kids have wanted to and do want to have just the fun of what I call the cardboard box, just giving them something that they can really express themselves the way they want to. And those are the things that things like Banning Ranch and Fairview Park can provide to people. One last comment is this. A lot of people, I have found when I walked the streets last time I ran for office, in the north side and Mesa Verde area, they don't really get the Banning Ranch part, because they don't understand, a lot of them, the danger that it will bring to Costa Mesa. And I think it's really important, along with promoting the positive aspects of the environmental impact of what we could save, is really drilling into some of these people's heads that their streets will be overrun with traffic from people coming from Banning Ranch and driving down Placentia, making a left on Adams, and going down the Brookhurst, or just cutting through Mesa Verde to get to Harbor Boulevard, and people going down 17th Street, cutting up Banning Ranch and going down to Harbor Boulevard, you know, cutting up to the Newport Boulevard and cutting up to 55, and that this is a serious impact that can result. So it's time to stop laughing about the fairy shrimp and really start talking about stopping this development from taking place. Thank you very much.
Hi, Cam. I just wanted to let everybody know that I do a restoration project in Talbot once a month. It's the first Sunday of the month. And for those interested in protecting Talbot, as well as Banning Ranch and Fairview Park, just to FYI that there's a proposal to put a bike path at the end of 19th Street, so where it starts to decline in elevation, they want to put a bridge there, and the trail that continues through Talbot, they want it to be concrete. And I'm going to be meeting with the OC Parks tomorrow and trying to talk them out of that. And that's in addition to the Orange County Sanitary District plan to put a pipeline through there.
Hi, Kim. Good presentation. I'm a supporter of the railroad, the model railroad, and I love that model railroad. Back some months ago, when the model railroad was being essentially evicted by extending their lease for only 14 months, there was a statement made by His Honor Mayor Righeimer that the 40 acres were worth $80 million. The 40 acres that the tracks were on were worth $80 million. He's, in other words, set a value of $2 million an acre on Fairview Park. I think we should, as strongly as possible, discourage such value setting. There was something else I wanted to talk about, but I'm too old. I forgot. Thanks.
I just want to briefly say one thing about the sport field. Now, that came out at the last Parks and Rec meeting, that is a myth, that there is no sport fields needed. The city of Costa Mesa did not turn away any youth sport organizations this year at all. And there was only 2 adults groups turned away, and actually a Group 3 user was allowed to take over a Group 1 user field on the same night, and that was legislated by the majority of City Council to even override their own city policy.
Okay, we got one last question. If you
Okay.
can kind of make it short.
Hi, my name's Jeffrey Collier. I live on Wilson Street, and I had 2 things. One was a comment on the bareness of Fairview Park. I've noticed we've lived in Costa Mesa now maybe 3.5 years, and I've noticed the park just really, it's not looking like a wilderness area sometimes.
No, I know it's not a downhill road.
Yeah, and the other thing is, what is your view on the impact of the lakes they put over there? You know, the little ponds?
You know, I really don't know. I can't really say. I've heard mixed reviews, and I really don't have the knowledge. But I know that there's a lot of birds liking it now. I sometimes wonder about destroying everything when you restore. But to be honest with you, I don't know.
So you're saying that maybe you get rid of some things and other things come, but it's still changed, nonetheless.
Well, I actually haven't studied the riparian habitat down below. Okay, I've been looking at other areas, so I don't really have the knowledge. I have talked to some people who have worked on it, and they said that it was necessary to get rid of the non-natives in order to bring back the natives. But once again, I don't know.
Thanks very much. And we're running behind.
Hey, sorry.
That's okay. But good comments, good questions. Suzanne, are you speaking next? Sean, I guess I think Suzanne's doing her talk next. And again, our Vice President, Suzanne Forster. And thank you very much. And we'll move right into Steve Ray, our Executive Director's talk, and we'll try to finish. I mean, we started 15 minutes late, so we'll end at 8:15, and then hang out afterwards. We got the room till 9 o'clock.
I'm excuse me. I may need my water. I don't know whose that is. I'm going to talk about the Conservancy's year of firsts. And by year, I actually mean the last several months. Because in that period of time, the Conservancy has had a pretty impressive series of firsts. And by first, thank you. I mean literally things to my knowledge that have not happened before in all the years the Conservancy has been around. So here's the first on my list. I mentioned earlier that the Conservancy had been given a unique opportunity by a very generous donor who wants to save Banning Ranch as much as we do, and that's a lot. Last spring, this wonderful, amazing, visionary, I wish he was here tonight, open space advocate, came to one of our board meetings. I'm telling this again for those of you who came in after I spoke about it before. He came to one of our board meetings and told us if we could raise $25,000, he would match it dollar for dollar. So that's our first because that's never happened at the Conservancy before. We hope it isn't the last time it happens. And as I said before, we're working very hard to raise this money. I also mentioned that we're close. As of tonight, we've raised well, actually not as of tonight. We have a new total tonight. I think we've raised so far about $1,500 just here. That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you. So now we're probably a little less than 400 and change short of our $25,000 goal, but we are running out of time. The deadline is upon us. Our year is up next month, and actually that's just days away. So if anything you've heard tonight makes you want to support our cause, this is your chance. And remember that whatever you donate tonight will be doubled. $1 equals $2, and no donation is too small. Of course, no donation is too large either, but it's very important for people to know no donation is too small. Also remember that the Conservancy is staffed and supported by 100% volunteers, and 100% of every donation goes to the cause of saving Banning Ranch. We have no paid staff, 100% goes to that cause. And the other thing I want to mention is how generous our supporters are and our board. And we are, a lot of our events that we put on, we are out of pocket. We don't dip into Conservancy funding. We fund that stuff ourselves. So I also want to say that every dollar you contribute funds basic operational costs that keep the Conservancy running and legal costs that directly support our efforts to save Banning Ranch. And that brings me to our second first. I think it's been mentioned already tonight. This was huge for us. I don't think I can actually express what a big deal what this was for us when we won our lawsuit against the city of Newport Beach last year, in November of last year. I'd love to talk more about that. It's quite a story. Steve Ray is our legal liaison, and he's going to give you a full update on the lawsuit. Another crucial thing your contributions do is allow us to engage experts to do research and analysis and to testify at Coastal Commission hearings on Banning Ranch. The Coastal Commission is the body that's going to make the final decision on the development. And the Conservancy is competing directly with the developer's high-paid consultants, so it's essential that we have credible expertise. Now, we've already talked about volunteers. Like every other environmental nonprofit, we always need volunteers. I think Terry mentioned some of our needs. If you have anybody has QuickBook experience, we need help there. We're setting up QuickBooks. If somebody could help us get going on that, we will take it up from there. We need fundraising help. Anybody have experience in that or just want to get involved, we need that as well. Anybody have experience with WordPress websites as a platform for websites? We're building one now, and we're going to need a part-time webmaster. But here I go again. Last time I'm going to do this, back to our matching challenge. If there's only one thing you can do tonight, please don't forget our matching goal. And the first tonight is our membership drive. The Conservancy has been around for 13 years, and this is the first time we've actually ever had a membership. You can actually join our organization now. You can do that tonight. And if you do that, your dues will go toward our matching challenge goal. I'm going to show you a couple of things. I've got a few slides for you. Before I do that, I want to thank everybody who's here tonight, and I want to thank those who are here with us in spirit. Our supporters are the very best part of the Banning Ranch Conservancy. We would not, you're the reason for all of our firsts. We would not have achieved them without you, and from the bottom of our hearts, we want to thank you for that. It's because of your support for Banning Ranch's open space that we've been able to keep the land free from development for over a decade. And now it's time to permanently free Banning Ranch from the threat of development. And with your help, we will do that. If I haven't convinced you yet to get involved, here are some of the known benefits of open space, and some of them may surprise you. This will be quick. Okay. Open space protects our planet. It helps control greenhouse gases and climate change. It greatly reduces vehicle miles traveled, air pollution, and congestion. It promotes health benefits. Exploring nature trails and open space is associated with lower blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. Even just gazing at open space brings life-prolonging health benefits. So I thought that was pretty good. That surprised me. It enhances quality of life. If we save Banning Ranch, we'll all be enjoying nature's unmatched beauty and tranquility. We'll be relishing the clean air, the water, and the room to breathe. And soul satisfaction. I mean, everybody wants that. So if you work with us, you will know the joy of saving precious natural resources and making the planet a cleaner, better, safer, and more beautiful place. Higher property values. That's the one that surprised me. It's true, this is a Stanford study. Property values rise with their proximity to open space. Okay, and this is what we're saving. This is one of Banning's, you've seen several slides tonight, I've got a couple more for you. This is one of Banning's mini arroyos. Here's a vernal pool. We've been talking about San Diego fairy shrimp. This is where they live. Here's a couple of blue herons out for a stroll on Banning Ranch just the other day. Here's a heron in the wetlands, an owl in the grasslands. That's one of the rare burrowing owls that winter on Banning Ranch. And here are nesting gnatcatchers. There are mommies, daddies, and babies living on Banning Ranch. Now, full disclosure, this is actually a picture wasn't taken on Banning Ranch. We don't have that kind of access to the land. But you've heard tonight from several people that there are lots of nesting pairs on Banning Ranch. And if we could have access to the land and take pictures, this is the kind of picture we'd get. Of course, we want to save the habitat and native plants. There are a couple of native plants on Banning Ranch. And Encelia blooming near the wetlands. Encelia is the basis for the coastal sage scrub that the gnatcatchers need to establish themselves. Okay, this doesn't exactly look like a benefit of open space, does it? This, in fact, is what we get if we actually save Banning Ranch. These are the things we will avoid if we can save this land and have it as a nature park and preserve. The loss of homes and businesses to street widening and improvements is going to be part of the traffic mitigation if this development goes through. And I think a lot of you know that Costa Mesa is going to have the worst problem, is most vulnerable to that, because all of the traffic is going to flow through Costa Mesa. Unfairly and unfortunately, Costa Mesa will bear the brunt of the traffic from this development, even though the development is in Newport Beach. So important to know that we can avoid that. And we'd also like to avoid these oil field toxins. As somebody mentioned earlier, I think it was Terry, they are going to excavate 2.6 million cubic yards of contaminated soil. And the way they're going to mitigate that is they sprinkle it or spray it with water. Anybody who lives right now on Sunset Ridge Park that's under construction right now knows that that does not work. And these are unregulated oil wastes with many dangerous toxins. We avoid air pollution. The development will raise air pollution to unsafe levels at build out and beyond, also noise and light pollution. We avoid traffic gridlock any more than we already have. Imagine 15,000 more cars on the road. I don't want to imagine it, but that's what we'd be dealing with. This is Sunset Ridge Park. I think you've seen this. This is after 6 weeks of earth moving and excavation. It's 15 acres. Banning Ranch is for over 400. Banning Ranch will be orders of magnitude worse. It's going to look something like this. It's going to take 10 years of excavation, remediation, and heavy construction to bring that to what they call build out. And I think that Sunset Ridge Park is going to take 10 months, so you can imagine what this is going to be like. In fact, this is what we do imagine it will be like. This is the aftermath. After 10 years of remediation and construction, this is when they start building the homes and reconstructing nature on the land. But the good news is none of this has to happen. We don't have to deal with any of this because we have an alternative, and there it is. Save Banning Ranch's open space. I think that picture says it all. Yes, let's hear some yays for that. Absolutely. And of course, if we save it, and we will, you get all of the good stuff that I mentioned and none of the bad stuff. And I'm sure the wildlife and native plants will thank you. And I thank you. So I think we have...
Thanks for the time. Okay, you know, we're going to skip questions because we're going to go right to Steve Ray. He's our executive director of the Banning Ranch Conservancy. And you probably also heard his voice. He's a host of the Green Orange. It's on every Saturday morning. It's an environmental radio show. It's on our local Costa Mesa radio station, KOCI 101.5, Saturday mornings. Green Orange. Steve, take it over.
Hey there, everybody. My name is Steve Ray. I host the Green Orange, as Terry said, on KOCI Radio every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. And that's the way I open my show on the Green Orange with, hey there, everybody. So if you listen in on Saturday morning, that's the first thing you're going to hear on the show. And this show, the Green Orange, is about what I could say, our environment and your health. And those two things, environment and health, are inextricably linked because you've seen evidence here already tonight how having open space in parks is healthier for you. Suzanne showed it, Kim showed it, and studies show that kids who grow up with open space have less incidence of childhood diabetes, have less incidence of obesity, have less incidence of gang activity. There's less crime in neighborhoods with parks and open space, and that certainly makes a healthy kid and certainly for a healthy community. So what we try to do in the Green Orange is talk about all of these things, and this kind of goes directly into Banning Ranch Conservancy and what we're trying to do with Banning Ranch, because one of the major topics we talk about on the Green Orange is open space, because it's vital to our survival that we have open space. It's vital to our survival that all of the species on Banning Ranch continue to exist. I say on the show that often, if you listen to the show, you've heard me say that everything on Earth is interrelated, interconnected, and interdependent. And we don't know exactly what all those interdependencies are, why we depend on all of these other creatures and their habitats to survive, but we know if we gradually start doing away with them, that this food chain that we call life here eventually starts breaking down, and somewhere along the line, that does affect us as human beings. So what I'm very concerned about is human beings, and what we do to our environment directly affects us as human beings. And I want to acknowledge that, the two members of the Costa Mesa City Council that are here tonight, Sandy Guinness and Wendy Lease, for being public-spirited and being concerned about our community enough to come here tonight and to listen to this. So I want you to thank them again for being here tonight. Now, what I'm going to try to do, I know we've been talking a lot about Fairview Park, and Fairview Park is a large segment of what we hope to call one day the Orange Coast River Park. I got involved in helping to try to create this Orange Coast River Park about 13 years ago or so. There was a committee of us that had been working on it for a long time to try to bring it to fruition, and we've got a lot of the public open spaces committed. The problem is we were never able to get this big piece of private land that connects all of it together committed, because the owners, they were oil operators, oil companies, they were just running their oil operation, they weren't interested in this. Now they have shown an interest in being a part of this, but of course the only part they want to be part of the Orange Coast River Park is the part they don't destroy. Which is going to be very little of Banning Ranch. So we're hoping to, as Terry said, the mission of the Banning Ranch Conservancy is to preserve, acquire, restore, conserve, and manage the entire Banning Ranch as permanent public open space, park, and coastal nature preserve. So to that end, what are we doing? Okay, well, first of all, just to highlight again, this is Banning Ranch. As you see, the very top edge there, that's 19th Street that runs right into it. And if you look at the map here, if I can get the pointer here, right there is where we're sitting right now. We're sitting right there. That's how close Banning Ranch is. And you can see it's closer from here to Banning Ranch than it is from the one end of Banning Ranch to the other end of Banning Ranch. So it's actually very close to us. It's 401 acres out there that you've heard about. Great habitat values. You've heard about that there are many protected important plant, animal, bird, and reptilian, also insect, and many other type of species they call Banning Ranch home and need to be preserved. The native plants and the wildlife will be seriously negatively impacted, possibly destroyed forever if that land is developed. But what about human impacts? What are the impacts on us? Now, Suzanne gave you a highlight of some of those, but I'm going to cover them from a slightly different angle. First of all, traffic. Well, good thing there's no congestion here now, so maybe we can handle all this additional traffic. The environmental impact report says that this project is going to create a minimum of 15 to 16,000 more cars per day on our roads. Now, you think it's congested now, imagine battling with 15 or 16,000 more cars every day. And in my opinion, that's actually a conservative figure, because they're taking into account only the traffic that's going to be generated by the project. That's not going to be the traffic that's going to be generated by everybody else trying to find a shortcut through Costa Mesa and cutting through our neighborhood streets and down 19th and 17th and 16th Streets trying to cut through to Banning Ranch and find a shorter way over to PCH going north. And it's further evidenced by the fact that the city of Newport Beach approved a road on that, on Banning Ranch that will handle 34,000 cars a day. So what does that tell you where it's going to go? And all that traffic is just going to be pouring through Costa Mesa. Obviously, it's going to create a lot of noise. You're going to have a lot of cars. That road that was approved out there has a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, an awful lot of traffic going awful fast through this area. And of course, safety. If you have little ones, you need to be concerned about their safety. If you're a senior citizen, you need to be concerned for them. You need to be concerned for yourself, no matter what your age or circumstance, because it's going to be a lot more dangerous out there. Other impacts, water shortages. You know, right now, we live in a desert, right? Yeah, we know that. We have a drought right now. You've heard about that, right? Okay, well, everybody was telling us we have to cut back. We have to cut back on water. Well, now we're going to add a development that is going to have 1,375 more homes, a resort hotel, and enough retail to constitute a mall. Where's the water coming from for that development? How much more are we going to have to cut to accommodate this for-profit development? How much more are our rates going to increase to pay for this additional water that who knows where it's going to come from, or how much we're going to have to cut back to make sure that they have water in that development? It's another impact. Another one, of course, pollution that's been touched on. But, you know, talking about water, and I know, Harold, you brought up water issues here. Yeah, water is going to be a major impact here, and then another gentleman here brought that up too. Water is going to be a major impact on site, because imagine all of that development, all of the people, all of the things that are going to get washed out into the streams that flow down off of this site. And if you look at the water quality management plan that the developer has put up, it says in there, the way they're planning to deal with it is they're just going to collect it into big retention ponds. They're going to actually destroy wetlands to put in retention ponds. And then they're just going to collect the water there. And then they admit in there, the retention ponds aren't going to be enough to handle all the water, so some of it is going to go flow right past it anyway. But the water that is going to be collected in the retention ponds is going to contain all of these pollutants coming from the shavings from our brakes. Every time somebody brakes out there, little shavings go down in the street. That's a heavy metal. It's very poisonous. That's going to get washed down. The fertilizers that are used, dog waste, every detritus of life that we have out there is going to get washed down. And what they're going to do with that, one of the retention ponds, they're going to just dump it, discharge it into the wetlands and potentially destroy those. And the Coastal Commission has said, wait a minute, you need to do an environmental analysis of all the damage you're going to do to the wetlands by dumping this water in there. The other major retention pond they're going to build, they're just going to flush it right out into the Simoniac Slough. And that'll go right out through the tidal gates into the Santa Ana River and right out onto the beaches along the ocean. You think we have polluted beaches now? Wait until all of that starts washing up on the beaches right offshore in Newport and Huntington Beach. So that's a serious concern. And of course, ground, a lot of that pollutant that's going to be washing down is going to be ground pollution, I've already mentioned to you, and air pollution. Imagine all of those cars. What do they spew out? Not electrical non-fumes, they spew out gasoline fumes. And we all know the impact of those, not just on our health, but on our climate in general. So that's going to be a big impact. And speaking of air, you remember this, you saw this picture here about all of this grading that's going on at Sunset Ridge Park right now. And keep in mind that that's all the grading that's going to go on Banning Ranch and all of those colors that are not gray there. And some of that, if you look at the legend, it says out there that they're going to be digging down taking out as much as 40 feet of topsoil in places. 40 feet of topsoil. And the fill areas are going to be as high as 50 feet dumping soil in. They're going to be moving 2.6 million cubic yards of dirt, digging it out, moving it around, hauling a lot of it off, but moving some of it around and redumping it other places. And that dirt is what? It's contaminated because it's oil field property. It is highly contaminated. It's hazardous materials, and there's a thing called fugitive dust. That's when the wind blows, comes in off the ocean, as it does, or most of the time here. It's going to come across Banning Ranch. It's going to pick up all that fugitive dust that's spewed up by the construction activity that's going on, and it's going to blow it right over the neighborhoods in Costa Mesa. And that's going to be an impact to you. Imagine this project, they say it's going to last at least 10 years. I've seen projections of 15 to 18 years it's going to take them to build it. If you have small children, or if you know somebody with small children, those small children will be grown and gone by the time they're finished out there. And imagine those small children breathing in this contaminated dust for their entire growing up lives. It can be a serious issue, health issue. I used to chair the Planning Commission in Huntington Beach, and we dealt with this over there from areas where they experienced a lot of childhood brain tumors that were caused by contaminated dust coming off of the oil fields that were being dug up to build homes over there. Same thing's going to happen over here. Another one, and I thank Terry Koken for trying to soldier through with Dr. Michael Hogan's presentation on archaeological resources out there. But this was a very active Native American site out there. There are 11 what are called significant historical sites out there of significant Native American activity out there. All of those will be lost. Those will not be saved. That will be lost. This was a major, major community area out here. As a matter of fact, some of you may not know that the San Juan Capistrano Mission, it got flooded out after they first built it. They built it too close to the creek, and they were looking to relocate it. And they came up here to the mesa up here, and they were going to actually build it here on this mesa because it was a perfect site, perfect location, was out of the flow of waters and everything else, had all of the everything they needed, and there was a major Native American village right by it. And of course, they needed that for their slave labor, basically. And so that was very important. And we know that existed on this site between Fairview Park and Banning Ranch was a major, major Native American activity. All of those resources will be lost to history forever, and your kids will never, ever be able to go out there. Your grandkids, the generations to come, will never be able to experience them or to learn about them. Property values, and Suzanne mentioned this. Yes, studies have been done, many studies have been done showing that homes near open space and park, the closer you are to it, the more it increases the value of their home and the more it increases the resale value of your home. So if you're going to sell at some point in time, the closer you are to Banning Ranch, the more it's going to impact. Studies also show that the closer you live to more development, it has a negative impact on your property values. There was even an Orange County Register did a survey among potential homeowners a few years ago where they gave them a list of 15 or 16 things and said, rank these. What are the most important things to you? And pick from this list of what is the most important thing to you in buying a new home. 57% of the homeowners, and the item that came in first, open space and trails. People wanted to be close to open space and trails. 57% of the people listed that. That was out of 16 items. That was an overwhelming majority of people wanted that. So if you live near Banning Ranch in this area, your home values are going to increase if it's open space. If it's developed, you're on your own. And speaking of money, it's going to cost everybody a lot of money. Millions, as a matter of fact, in taxpayer dollars will be paid to benefit a for-profit developer. And why? Well, streets and intersections. The reports show that all of this traffic has to go somewhere, and it's going to impact a lot of streets and intersections in Costa Mesa especially. As a matter of fact, up to 9 intersections will be heavily impacted, and many of those will have to be improved. Some streets will probably have to be widened. As a matter of fact, the Coastal Commission has said they're not going to be able to bring traffic in from Coast Highway. They're going to have to bring it all through Costa Mesa onto the project. So with that, all of that traffic is going to be coming through Costa Mesa. All of those streets are going to be widened. Now, the developer did work a sweetheart deal with the city council here for a little over $4 million the city is going to receive to to make all these improvements. Well, $4 million will possibly handle 2 intersection improvements. That's it. What about the other 7? What about the street widening when you have to take people's property and close down businesses and buy them out and declare eminent domain to do all that and widen those streets? It's a huge amount of money. Where do you think that money's coming from? Not from the developer. And police and fire services, there's going to be costs for that go into the future. Other infrastructure improvements that are going to have to be made regarding sewers and everything else that are going to be part of this. So money, it's going to be money, and it's not going to be the developer's money. It's going to be taxpayer money, and you know what pocket that is. It's yours. So this is basically a battle between open space and development. Now, and the Banning Ranch is under the sphere of influence of the city of Newport Beach. And Costa Mesa and Newport Beach fought over, but Newport Beach won, so they got it. And in 2006, though, they have in Newport Beach a thing called the Green Light Initiative, meaning any large development, the citizens get to vote on it. And pretty much, well, it is not pretty much, every green light vote in Costa Mesa or in Newport Beach has failed. People don't want these huge developments in Newport Beach. So they did, you know, it was pretty evident that voters weren't going to approve it here. So they worked out a deal to amend the city's general plan. And the idea was that they would declare that Banning Ranch, #1 priority for Banning Ranch is that it remain permanent open space and park. That's the idea. It did say, however, of course, if we don't do that, you know, then the developer can develop it, or at least seek to develop it. So that's what they're doing. And along with that, the voters also changed other language or added other language in the general plan. One of it said that the city is required to work with state and federal agencies to identify wetlands and what are called environmentally sensitive habitat areas, ESHAs, that need to be preserved, protected, and restored in order to determine if any development is possible, and if so, where on that land it could be developed, because you have to take out all of the areas that have to be saved. And you saw from Dr. Terry Welsh's presentation at the beginning, all of that grading, and you saw where the gnatcatcher habitats were and the cactus wren habitats and the vernal pools were. They would have to destroy all that. Well, the law says you got to save all of that and then decide where, if anything could be developed, it would be. The city failed to do that. They didn't live up to their own general plan. Now, the developers went ahead and submitted a project application to the city. The company is called Newport Banning Ranch LLC. I'll save you all of the legal things about how many companies actually own this. It's oil companies and investment companies, basically. They put together an environmental impact report, and then the EIR and the entire project was approved by the Newport Beach City Council in July 2012, basically ignoring every issue we brought up and every issue that all of the public agencies who weighed on this brought up. And so they just ignored it and approved it. Well, we sued. What are you going to do, right? The Banning Ranch Conservancy filed a lawsuit alleging that they had not done proper environmental review and that they had violated the city's own general plan that was passed by the voters. Well, a trial was held in Orange County Superior Court, and the final ruling was issued just a couple months ago in January. First of all, it did uphold the EIR. We didn't like that part of it. We didn't win that part of it. But it did rule that the city did indeed violate their own general plan. It ordered them to vacate their approvals for the project, and it ordered them to go back and do it over again. And this time, they had to coordinate with responsible public agencies, especially the California Coastal Commission, which they totally blew off. Coastal Commission even offered their own biologists to help the city identify these areas, and the city just blew them off. Turns out you actually can't do that. So the court did find that they violated, ordered them to go back and redo it again. The city decided they weren't going to follow the court order, and instead what they're trying to do is to change their general plan to say, oh, we can do whatever we want to do. And that's basically the language that they're adopting says that we can do whatever we want to do. We'll just let the agencies know what we're going to do, and that's too bad. They don't really get to weigh in. And with the loss of the lawsuit, then the Newport Beach City Council did file an appeal just a couple weeks ago, and then we filed a cross appeal. And that basically says they're appealing this city violation of the general plan. We're appealing that the EIR should have also been invalid, primarily because since they didn't identify the wetlands and the environmentally sensitive habitat areas and the areas that had to be saved, how could the environmental impact report say that there were no impacts or that they had been dealt with? So we'll be going to the appeals court and we'll see how that shakes out. But that's not the end of the road, actually. The end of the road is the California Coastal Commission, because they get to make a decision here. This is in what's called the coastal zone. The entire Banning Ranch property is in the coastal zone, and it's also what's called an area of deferred certification, meaning they're the only ones that get to make the final decision on that piece of property. So the developer submitted an application to the Coastal Commission in February of 2013. The application was promptly denied by the Coastal Commission on the basis that it was totally inadequate, and 4 times since then the developer has submitted additional applications, and 4 subsequent times the Coastal Commission has sent back letters saying no. They get to keep trying though, and I'm sure that they will. However, in order to have a complete application, one of the things they have to have is approvals from the local jurisdiction, and now the court has said they don't have those. So, you know, everything is kind of in a kind of a state of limbo right now, but it's an awful lot of work for being in limbo, I'll tell you. We spend innumerable hours every week on dealing with the Coastal Commission and with the courts. Now, what are some of the unresolved issues that the Coastal Commission has pointed out? Well, in 1973, when the Coastal Act passed, those operations that were operating and in violation of the Coastal Act, they could apply for an exemption permit to be what's called grandfathered in, meaning we're already here, we're already doing this, so they got the right to continue doing it. So in 1973, the oil operator asked for an exemption permit, and they were granted one, and they were granted a permit for the oil operations that they were doing at that time, which was up to 340 wells that they were doing at that time. And it was to continue until 1994. And what's the year now? 2014. That's, my math says 20 years ago. That's when operations were supposed to cease. Well, they have continued operating beyond, and for the last 20 years outside of the permit exemption that they were issued. They have never reapplied for another permit from the Coastal Commission. That's one of the issues. A second one, we have to this point discovered 181 wells, new oil wells that were drilled by the oil companies without going back to the Coastal Commission and getting a permit. These were not included in those original wells that they were allowed to have. These were 181 new wells that they never applied for a permit for, never got permission for, and they went ahead and dug them. Not only that, they laid in pipeline, they put in pumps and sumps, they carved new roads in the landscape out there, taking more vegetation out. All of those kind of things are violations of the Coastal Act. Each of those could be fined up to $25,000 a day for every day that the violation has existed. It's a serious, serious problem for the developer. You know, the Coastal Commission, I have to tell you, didn't find out about this by themselves. We did the work to locate all this. We have people here who spent hours and hours and hours, I can tell you, weeks and weeks at places like the Department of Oil, Gas, and Geothermal Resources, DOGGR as it's called, going through their records, looking for all of their well information, their drilling information, their extraction information, to come up with this information to give to the Coastal Commission. And now it's a serious issue on whether they're ever going to be able to move forward with an application. Another issue is remediation. Another issue is remediation. They're saying that under this exemption permit that they have the right to go ahead and just tear this land up and not to have to get the Coastal Commission's permission. Now, under the permit, it says that they could maintain their oil wells. It does not say that they could go and plow under and mow and every square inch of land out there, which they have been doing for the last several years since they started promoting this development, because they wanted to kill all of the native vegetation out there and get rid of all the species, so when the biologists went out there, they wouldn't find them anymore. Well, God, you know, you remember the movie Jurassic Park, Nature Finds a Way? Well, nature found a way. They're back. in full force, the plants and the birds and the animals. So they're saying they can remediate without a permit. Coastal Commission saying, no, you can't. A lot of biological studies, all that vernal pools, for instance, they haven't completed all the vernal pool studies. Matter of fact, they didn't even do them for the environmental impact report. They've had to do them now. They also have to do additional gnatcatcher studies, cactus run studies. There's a whole mess of biological studies and analysis they have to perform. Some of them not performed at all. Some of them are incomplete. There's a whole lot of things they have to go through. Also, the Coastal Commission has told them, well, we're not going to allow you that big road entrance off of PCH, and also Caltrans has said, we're not going to give you a permit for it either, so you have to find some other way on the property. And the Coastal Commission says, well, show us what other way you're going to get on the property, and that can basically only be pretty much 16th, 17th, and 19th Streets through Costa Mesa that it's going to happen. And they have provided no alternative for that. They've done no traffic studies on that, no analyses on that, no mitigation identified for that, so they have all of that work to do. And there's inadequate mitigation for all of the impacts that are being caused, and there's much, much more that we could talk about, but I will spare you all of that. Again, we have a vision for Banning Ranch, and we have vision plans available back there for you. We encourage all of you to pick up one. If we run out and don't have enough for all of you, go to our website, which you'll see it later at the end here, and contact us, call us, whatever, send us an email, and we will be happy to get our vision plan to you. And Terry showed you all of the things that it shows in there, and volunteer opportunities being the one at the bottom. So we need your help. We need your help, to volunteer, your expertise, your skills, your time. You may think, I know nothing about this, I can't do anything, but I can tell you every one of our people here who are here today came to Banning Ranch Conservancy not knowing what they could do, if they could do anything. I have no skills. I don't know how any of this works. But we have all of these people that are now experts in this thing because you just go out and do it and you become expert. You can help no matter what your age, your talent, your ability, your work experience, whatever. There is some way that you can help save Banning Ranch, and we encourage you to become involved. And be an activist. We need you to attend hearings and meetings, because when the public shows up, Sandy and Wendy, do you listen when the public shows up? Yeah, they're shaking their heads, yes, yes. So we need you to show up. And finally, to support Suzanne's, what she's been saying all night, financial support. We always, of course, need that. So remember, Banning Ranch, it's the last large parcel of unprotected coastal open space remaining, and I will say in all of Southern California. I've been doing this a long time. I've worked on many of the other projects that came before the Coastal Commission years ago, and I can tell you this is the last large piece of unprotected coastal open space from Point Conception to the Mexican border. This is it. We call it nature's last stand, and frankly, it's our last stand too, because we count as much as nature, if not even more, right? I mean, we're a part of nature. This is what we envision Banning Ranch to look like. We have a board over here. This is what we envision Banning Ranch to look like. This is what it can look like. This is what it should look like forever. This is the information to contact us, and Terry, I guess we will now take questions for anybody who might still have questions.
You've sat for almost 2 hours. Thank you so much. We're out of, we got to leave the room at 9, so why don't we just kind of mingle around? We got those 5 tables set up in the back.
Well, Terry, I see some people lining up for questions.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So let's go ahead and get those, see if we can get through those quickly.
You forgot to say, and thanks for caring.
Oh, yes. Yes, the end of my show, I say, thank you for listening and thanks for caring. So thank you for that, Cindy. Cindy is one of my faithful listeners. So.
Hi.
Yes, ma'am.
This isn't so much a question, it's kind of a comment. My husband and I bought a home above the Talbert Preserve. We live up in the bluff. And we too, like you, fell in love with the area. We didn't even know Banning Ranch or any of this existed till we moved and bought the home. We go in hiking through Talbert practically every day. We love it. But I'm concerned about the overbuilding along Victoria. They knocked down the Unitarian Church, as you know, and now they're building what they call homes. 17 of them are going to be, crammed in there. They call them homes, but they're only going to be 6 inches apart. Okay, and now we've heard that they want to buy the building next door and put a 28-unit condo. And that traffic is going to affect the Talbert Sanctuary also, because that's right where the pathway is, and there's a bike trail there. And we're just really worried about the impact of all these, buildings coming in there.
Well, the thing to understand about not only that and Banning Ranch, but development is everywhere. It's going on. It's like if there's an open space of land, or even if there's not an open space, let's tear something down and create more open space so we can build. And we've been building. I mean, some people say progress is building. I say progress is enabling those of us who are already here to live better.
Right.
Okay? And so all of these projects, they're all connected. Just like everything in nature is connected and interdependent and interrelated, everything with this, all this building is interconnected as well, and all of this has to be addressed. That's why our cities are supposed to have master plans to deal with this. Unfortunately, most cities deal with it in a very piecemeal manner and don't go by any master plan.
This is right next to Victoria Pond, and Victoria Pond is a habitat, and nobody's looking after that area at all.
Well, I think it's time to start another nonprofit organization to talk about this. No, seriously, you have to get out there. There's 2 council members right here. Go talk to them.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you very much.